You've officially tuned in to the Epiphany podcast, and I'm your host, Joanna Lynn. Thanks for joining me on my journey of spiritual growth, restoration, and most importantly, transformation. You've got a front row seat, so take my hand as we journey together. We're on the Epiphany, y'all. Hey everybody, it is your girl Joanna Lynn. We are here for episode 35. And this one is going to be titled, My Oh My, Where is the Time? I know that week after week after week after week, I apologize. And the fact is, your girl is struggling. If you follow me on any type of social media platform, which I hope that you do, you'll notice that I've been talking consistently about being on a struggle bus. And the fact is, I am. The thing that I really want to point out more than anything about Christianity is that you will not always have it together. For those in the back, let me repeat that again. Your life is never going to be perfect. If you thought that believing in God was a one-way ticket to perfection, you were totally wrong. And I just have to be honest, no matter how encouraging, no matter how inspiring I try to be, no matter how happy or bubbly or uplifting or any of the things that I've heard or I try to be, at the end of the day, I am a human being who is susceptible to emotional attacks, physical attacks, spiritual attacks, and I've just been struggling. I want to talk about time. It's something that over and over, I know sometimes I can get very repetitive because I really, really just want y'all to know from the bottom of my heart everything that I've went through and my inspiration, my goal, the whole reason for me doing this podcast is not only because of what I've went through, but because I want to help someone. Each and every day is a struggle for me. I know it's a struggle for you too. But roughly 2 weeks ago, I did lose my grandmother, my granny. She was about to be 80 years old. She was a character, to say the least. But I have to be upfront with y'all. So I've never been the person that was afraid of death. I've never been one that didn't know how I would handle it, but I can say this is the first person to pass away that I had somewhat of even a close relationship with. Growing up, I knew lots of people who lost their parents, lost their grandparents. The first real death in the family that I knew, my father passed away almost 4 years ago. But as you all know, me and my father did not have a great relationship, really didn't have one at all. So my granny really is the first person to pass away that I can honestly say I had a deep or some sort of emotional connection to. So much like all my other family, she, ever since I was born, has always lived in Amarillo. So getting to know her consisted of yearly visits, either her coming to visit us for a week or us going to visit her. Now, she's not somebody that I saw every single day. I've actually never gotten a chance to spend a holiday with her, a birthday, a Mother's Day, anything like that because we live so far away. But growing up, we always felt like she was so mean because she came around, and even when we were teenagers, we had to take naps. She was very strict. She was very by the book, but she was very caring. My grandmother had 6 children. From those 6 children, she had almost 30 something grandchildren and over 20 something great grandchildren, and I think about 4 or 5 great great grandchildren. So she definitely was always the life of the party. Until about a year ago, I never really realized the resemblances, not just physical but actual personality traits that I shared with her. One of my best friends pointed it out one day when I was on the phone with her, and I've always felt like an outcast in my family. Not that they made me feel that way, I just always felt different. I never really could relate to a lot of people. I was just always different. And I can see that I was a lot like my grandmother. And although I didn't get to spend every single waking moment with her as an adult, I did get to spend enough time with her, enough phone conversations, enough visits that I can honestly say, as strong as I tried to be, it did affect me in ways. And the reason I want to talk about this with y'all, I really didn't intend to talk about her passing for this long, but I want to say the first thing that really hurt me the most, and this is a thought and an emotion that I battle a lot because, as you've heard, I was in a very bad relationship for 13 years. So backtrack. I'm 17 years old. I'm in high school. I meet this guy. I have all these great things, scholarship opportunities and things going for me. But deep inside, I wanted a family, I wanted children, and I chose a relationship. Had no idea what I was getting myself into, had no idea what was going to happen. But those 13 years were honestly, in so many ways, the worst days of my life. It's also made me who I am today. I am grateful for the lessons and for the trials and for the opportunity. I'm grateful to be alive today. But oftentimes in situations like losing my grandmother, I look back, and as much as I can say, I've never spent a Christmas with her. I've never spent a Thanksgiving with her. I've never gotten to celebrate her birthday on her birthday, or I've never gotten to bring her roses on Mother's Day. I also look at the fact that for 13 years, I was in a position, and while for me it was an abusive relationship, but I want you to think about your life, about what is holding you back, what is keeping you in bondage, whether it's an addiction to drugs, whether it is a bad relationship, whether it is an anger or an emotion that is keeping you away from God. I want you to really think about what is your vice? What is keeping you from being the person that God created you to be and keeping you from fulfilling and walking in your purpose? That is really what this message is about. So, for 13 years, my life was severely impacted. Typical signs of being in a bad relationship are being secluded from family and friends, not being allowed to do this and do that. And I don't want to go down that whole road, but so for a long time, those conversations with my grandmother were very few and far in between. And when I did get to visit with her, it was always very rushed. Always, there was always this pressure because I wasn't supposed to be, or, I had to rush back to home, or, that type of thing. So when I left that relationship, realizing that although I had not lived, and the reason I say I hadn't lived for 13 years, because there are so many things that even now, even in my new relationship with John, we've talked on several occasions, and it's like, no, I've never been to an actual concert before. I have another birthday coming up, and I was like, I've never actually had a birthday party since I was 16. And he was kind of shocked. He was like, what? Seriously? I was like, I know I've told you this before, but it's so hard to fathom that a person literally was living every day. They were alive and breathing, but they weren't living a life. And for a long time, I didn't live a life. Simple things, like birthdays or holidays, or going to the club or going to a party, birthday parties, baby showers, weddings. When I first broke out into my freedom, into my new life, best friends from school, when I saw them with 10-year-old children, celebrating 10-year wedding anniversaries, having babies, as happy as I was to now be involved in all of these things, it was very heartbreaking for me. I cried my eyes out and begged for forgiveness from several of my closest friends for just not being there. I think we all imagine ourselves, especially as young adults, we dream and we imagine life to be a certain way. And when it doesn't turn out that way, we just kind of don't know what to do. I can't honestly say that I had a backup plan. So here we are today, 2020. I've been free for over 2 years and my grandmother passes away. And in my mind, I've been out for 2 years and our relationship has definitely strengthened. I had several more conversations with her. We would send videos to each other and we would laugh and we would talk. But somewhere in the back of my mind, I was just hoping for the chance to redo it all, to go back and get that time back. I can't go back to that 18-year-old girl that's graduating high school, and I can't choose to go on a vacation and visit my grandmother and take her out and celebrate her. um I'm sorry. I did not expect to start crying in the middle of this. Please forgive me. Anybody, again, shout out to y'all who know me because Joanna's being a sap right now. But no, I can't get that time back. And so oftentimes I have expressed that to people that I care about and that I love, that I'm sorry because I chose a relationship, a bad relationship, over many of my family, not fans. I mean, yeah, y'all my fans, right? But no, I chose something way out of line, outside of my purpose, outside of the will of God for me, outside of what I should have ever been doing. I chose that over my family, over my friends, over my career, and ultimately over myself. So when I'm faced with situations like the death of my grandmother, while my faith in God, I'm confident. I know that she's with Jesus. I know where her faith was. I actually rejoiced when I found out. I was happy. I was happy for her, cuz she had not even a week before been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. I knew that that was painful. I knew that she had been a diabetic for 40 years. And so ultimately I knew that God's will, God's way, I trust him and I know that she was with him and I just find peace in that. But the part of me that is human and the part of me that wishes I would have taken more time. And I've always been a person to be very intentional about small things. And I've always said that several times before. The smallest of things matters to me. Little notes and little voice recordings and photos and memories. I've just always been a person that is very, very connected with people. I've always been very intentional about the time that I spend. And just kind of realizing that I allowed myself to live a life that not only I didn't want, but that wasn't pleasing to God and that was not aligned with my purpose. I am in no way beating down on myself or feeling sorry for myself or asking you to do that either. Like I said, I am grateful for the hurdles I've had to jump. They have strengthened my spiritual muscles, and I know that there is no turning back. But times at like this where I get to reflect and I get to say, the famous words, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that. And So that's where I am. That's where I want you guys to understand. And I want to press upon you that I know what you're going through is hard. But what you're going through today is not the definition of who you are. The mistakes that you're making today and the wrong turns and the wrong decisions are not the title of your book. They are simply chapters of your life, but it does not define who you are, and it definitely does not hinder you making it to and through your purpose with God. Even though I am extremely heartbroken at times for I'll say the dark years of my life. And I could say a million times over, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that. But at the end of the day, God is faithful. I stole that from Mr. Bucksy and his beautiful wife. I love that. I think it's something that he repeats to us all the time. Not necessarily to us, he repeats it to himself. But it's something that has really been resonating in me, and I didn't realize it until today. God is faithful. God was faithful to me through 13 years of absolute hell. God is still faithful, even through my grandmother's passing, even through the rest of my life. God is faithful. And we have to be grateful for that. But I do want to urge you to take a minute and stop feeding your problems, stop feeding your anxieties, stop feeding your worries, and start feeding yourself the Word of God. Feed yourself the joy, the peace, and the promises that God has for you. Allow Him to not only just cover you, but fill you to the point where you are completely overflowing. And let that overflow into your daily life. Take a moment to really, really smell the roses, to stop and to relish at the beauty of what God has done. The clouds and the sun and the sky, your mother, your father, your auntie, your uncle, your child, your spouse. Take a moment to soak in those precious, precious moments. Be grateful, because if 2020 has taught any of us anything, our plans mean nothing. My vision board is going in the trash because it was a waste of time, money, and effort. Because at any given time, your plans can be derailed, they can be completely thrown off track, and it's okay. Don't focus on the fact that you got off track. Focus on how you're going to move forward. Every step, every jump, even a crawl on the ground in the right direction is still a move in the right direction. Every day that you open your eyes, you have the ability to make a change. The one thing I do know about my grandmother, she was a very bad alcoholic. And she just celebrated, I want to say, her 41st birthday, she called it, from being completely substance free. And that is something that up until her death, she devoted her time at church, at AA meetings, helping people pick themselves up off the ground. I knew my family was crazy. I knew it because I'm kind of crazy too. But being at her funeral, let me just tell y'all. We really did not have a woe is me funeral. We were outside for one. My grandmother, and maybe I get my organization from her, she planned her funeral from beginning to end. The obituary, she wrote us a poem, everything. And she had this song. I'm not going to get into too much detail, but she was a partier. You know what? It's my party. It was her party. So I'm just going to tell you. So there's this country redneck country bumpkin song called Red Solo Cup. Okay. So it was listed that we would all have red solo cups and we would party for her celebration. Um, so we did. And there were so many people in the middle of a virus. And I honestly believe there probably would have been more had we not been in the middle of a worldwide pandemic. But needless to say, all of my crazy family was there. My cousins I had never met before, aunties, uncles, everybody, and her friends and the people that had such wonderful things to say. But really, what stuck out to me the most was the variety and the diversity of people that she made an impact on. You know, sometimes you go into these funerals or into these settings where Mama Janie was just so spiritual. She was the church mama, and everybody there has on they all white and they're so holy moly, and that is a great thing. I'm not putting it down in any way. But the people at my grandmother's funeral ranged from crazy family members, bougie, country, ghetto, to convicts, alcoholics, drug addicts, all clean, all lives changed, family, not family, friends, so many people that she touched. And that really kind of reminded me of myself, because I'm always the person that my arms are open no matter where you come from. And knowing that she was the same way, that she spent a very good half of her life recognizing that, okay, I messed up the first half. That's okay. 40 years is a long time. I messed up. But guess what? I'm going to fix it. I'm going to do better. I'm going to change my life. I'm going to turn around my life. And not only am I going to trust God, build my relationship with Him, and change my life, but I'm going to allow Him to use me to change someone else's life. And it's funny that she has never said that to me, and she never will say that to me, but I saw that. By being at her funeral, I saw that. Um, and knowing that that was my entire heart for starting this podcast, who in the world would ever go through a trauma and say, well, let me record myself crying on this podcast so, everybody can laugh at me, so I can be the talk of the town, so I can be embarrassing, so I can put all my shame, my heartache, my pain, my frustrations, let me just put it all out there. But I don't even worry about that anymore, because I said to God, before my first podcast episode came out, I said, God, if you just help one person, if we can get to one person by me telling my story, that's all that matters. Just another girl like me, just another guy like me that is on edge, that is hanging on by the hair of their chinny chin, because your girl was close to it all, close to the end, close to either death, murder, suicide, something, mental house, close to something. And God was just with me every step of the way. And so I cannot not talk about that. I cannot sit here in good conscience and not talk about how good God has been to me and how much He has done for me. And so if there is one person out there that needs to hear, I don't care how long you've been on the wrong path or going down the wrong journey or making the wrong decisions. Every day, God wakes you up and gives you breath in your lungs, gives you a sound mind, gives you a beating heart. Every day is a new day, a new chance, a new opportunity to reach up and grab hold of who He says you really, really are, and to make a difference in not only your life and everyone else's life around you. So yes, the past 2 or 3 weeks have been difficult for me, on top of health issues, just not feeling well. Several little bitty things just going wrong and wrong and wrong, and I just feel like the whole world is against me right now. But it's all right because it doesn't matter who the world is against. I know that God is for me, that God has plans for my future for good and not for evil. I know what the word of God says, and I know what God promises me, and I know that He is going to see me through because God is faithful. God will see you through. Um, he's never left me, and I'm not going to say yet because He never will. God will never leave you. Even when you don't feel Him, even when you can't hear Him, when you can't touch Him, when you don't know He's there, God is always with you. So take this time to really reflect on your vices. What's holding you back? Let's make the change today. I encourage you and I demand that you make a change today. Because I didn't get on here crying. I got snot running down my nose for you to say, I'm not going to change. It ain't worth it. Let me tell you, changing my life in my mind was the most difficult task. But when I actually stepped forward, it was the easiest thing I've ever had to do. So let's make this change, y'all. I love you all very, very much. Please share your girl with the world. Epiphany Podcast is on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, iHeartRadio, and on YouTube. Follow me on I am Joanna Lynn on Instagram. You can also hit me up under Joanna Lynn on Facebook. And I can't wait to talk to y'all soon. Mwah!